Hi, it's Dimitri Bilgier here, talking to you from my home in Madison, Wisconsin. I want to talk to you about something that's really important but really often overlooked. It's the difference between working inside a dynamic, inside the parts of an issue, and working on a dynamic as a whole, as one piece. This is actually a big deal, even if it doesn't sound like one, so I'm going to give you the details on it now so you can start getting it in your mind and start using it. Okay, the first thing to know is how an issue normally presents during a process and how we usually work on an issue. For most issues, they show up, there's like a couple different points of view. Usually they show up as there's a big mean point of view, right? It's like, you're not good enough, or it'll never work, or no matter what happens, you're screwed. And then there's a little helpless part that's more like, oh, I feel bad, I want a way out of this, what am I gonna do? So we got these two parts going, and that's usually what we work on. We work inside that dynamic. We say, all right, well, I'm going to fix this thing. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I'm either going to give a bunch of love to the small part, so it feels okay, or I'm going to like pump up the small part and get it really angry and blow away that big mean part so that there's no longer that abusive dynamic going on inside of it. I'm going to fix this from the inside. And this should probably be pretty, you've seen this. So as it happens, there's a downside to doing things this way. And the downside is this. While you may fix what's going on inside a dynamic, you leave the participant with the feeling that they have dynamics that need to be fixed. I mean, how many of us, after a really great process or after we discovered process work in general, made a list in our mind of, oh, here's all the stuff that I need to work on to get fixed. So while we may on the upside be fixing what's going on inside an individual issue, we're giving people the idea, reinforcing the idea that I have things about me that need fixing. Okay? I think as facilitators we can often do better than that. So what is better than that? Well, that's working on the dynamic rather than inside it. It's working on a person's relationship with the idea of having an issue rather than on the issue itself. What we want to do as facilitators is hold an identity on the participant that's even bigger than the identity they hold on themselves. They come in with saying, well, part of me's broken, this thing needs to be fixed, I got this mean part that needs to be gotten rid of, or I got this little part that needs love. What we need to do as facilitators is believe, wow, every part of this person is doing its best to help them and is perfect the way that it is. And when you can do that, suddenly you go up a level. This is, in fact, what deep change processes are all about. What we do is we draw a circle around it and say, all right, you've got this painful dynamic. Why do you have it? How are you holding on to it out of love? How is this dynamic protecting you? And can we acknowledge that protection and honor that protection? Well, that will help the whole thing release. Or we can look at how are you holding on to this entire thing as a way of loving and staying connected to some person or your family or some system or some group or some religion or some part of your society. If it's a way of loving, can we look at the whole thing as something you're doing out of love? Can we feel the love of that and acknowledge that? And from that, allow something else to open up and something different to happen. Let me give you 3 quick examples of processes that were transformed by looking at it this way, of processes that got to a much deeper level because we were able to look at the whole thing as something that was being held for a reason rather than just some glitch in a person that had to be fixed. So first, there was a woman I worked with who said, well, look, I've got this choice in my life. I can either be nice and be screwed with, or be mean and be somebody who I don't like to be. Well, in a normal process, we would set out the part that says you always have to be nice, we'd set out the part that says you always have to be mean, and then we'd look what part do we need to set a boundary with, what part do we need to bring love to. But when she was able to see the entire thing, and I'm not going to go into the details of what happened, using some of the tools from Deep Change, which are too complicated to get into here right now, but when she was able to see the entire thing as a positive thing in her life, something that was trying to do good, suddenly the energy showed up that said to her, you know what? I can be nice without being weak, and I can be strong without being mean. That was the insight that showed up when she was able to see the entire dynamic as something good in her life rather than looking at it like she was broken. Another one would be, a lot of people have worked with this one, and I've seen it time and again, well, on the one hand, I can have a relationship that I'm not really into, right? On the other hand, I can wait until I have until a perfect relationship shows up. And normally we would put out these two parts and try and connect with one or disconnect with another. By looking at that entire dynamic as perhaps a way of protecting yourself or a way of loving someone and staying connected to something, these people are often able to see, wait a minute, something unexpected shows up, like, oh, I see now that actually my relationship with the blessing current of the universe is the most important thing. And as I clean that up, my other relationships will simply unfold and I won't have to worry about it. So that can happen. Or another one would be someone who says, well, I can either be naively hopeful and always disappointed in my life, or I can be realistic, but everything sucks. And that's a person, when they see the entire dynamic and look at what are they trying to protect, who are they trying to love, what are the deep reasons for holding on to it that are good, they'll often break through to something like, wow, so I can be hopeful without being naive, and I can be realistic without being cynical. There's a new way of being with the entire issue that drops me into a bigger area of blessing, a bigger area of love, a bigger area of accepting myself the way I am and allowing my life to simply unfold. So that's the tools for doing that, and getting that kind of shift are the deep change tools. So my invitation to you is, read the rest of this page or take a look at the page that loads after this video stops, depending on how I end up setting it up. And I hope to get to meet you soon at one of these trainings.